we will invite our next guest from University of Alaska, Fairbanks, USA, and it's a Professor Sean Asikluk, Topkok. I hope I'm saying it correctly. And I know it's very dark up there. You have to wait till 21st of January for the next sunlight. Is this correct?
Yeah, well, actually, in the middle of Alaska, so we have just only a couple of hours of daylight.
So there is still a little bit of light.
It's
So
still, mm,
all right, so we'll just give you that voice and listen to your beautiful presentation about Indigenous Studies PhD programs in your university.
great. So,
We can see your presentation. Perfect.
great. Yeah, you too. Um, so I'm going to be talking about the Indigenous Studies PhD program at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and I really appreciate the eGrad School Conference reaching out to me to present. Um, so I'm going to go by these slides very quickly. So um, feel free to just shout out if you have any questions. But first, I want to introduce myself. Runga ataga asikluk adataga senyuk anaga alimi ilika ika lunagavik Cork mi runga several Kunga University of Alaska Fairbanks me. So Asikaluk. Asikaluk means in Nupiaq means bad boy. I'm not a bad boy. I was named after one of my great uncles. So if an elder asked me my Nupiaq name, know my family tree by that. My parents are the late Clifford and Eileen Topkok from Tiller, which I did the place name for in my introduction. And I'm a person of the Quirk people. Teller is a village of about 200 and a little over 200 people. I live in Fairbanks, Alaska, um, and I work for the University of Alaska Fairbanks in the Center for Cross-Cultural Studies as a full professor and the director for the Center for Cross-Cultural Studies. So, kind of give you an idea of how diverse Alaska is we have about 23 unique Alaska linguistic groups. And these are by color. My parents have come from Teller, which is around this area, if you see my mouse. So if my father were still alive today, his first language was Inupiaq. And if he were still alive today, if he spoke to people in Canada and also in Greenland, they would be able to understand each other. Um, uh, but so kind of give you an idea of Alaska compared to Australia. This is um, this is to scale. Alaska is pretty large, but not as large as Australia. You can see that uh, the tip of the end of the Aleutian chain goes all the way towards the western part of Australia, as well as going to northern Australia and to the western part of Australia. So Alaska is pretty large, but not as large as Australia. So um, looking back in history, Alaskan Native education, we had our indigenous knowledge systems before contact, after contact in 1990 or 1900s. We had our indigenous knowledge systems in Western education. They're fairly separate, but due to colonization, um, and also other things as well as epidemics and other things. Uh, are we in the 1950s? Western education uh, dominated our native ways of knowing, and so when we stepped across the school, We weren't allowed to speak our language, utilize our native knowledge, and we had to cut our hair. So in the 1995s, the mid 1990s, we tried to part of the Alaska Rural Systemic Initiative. We brought back the native ways of knowing so that those are equal. And then um, during the 2000s, we saw that there's actually with the two-eyed seeing, those ways of seeing how those really integrate with each other. Um, so this slide represents the thumbnail et al. It's a co-production of knowledge systems where there's in the center of the co-production of knowledge, it brings Western knowledge systems and indigenous knowledge systems together on the in the outside of the inner circle. There's the definition, problem definition, identifying questions, information analysis, and all of those on the outer ring um, shows that we, as in Alaska Native people and Indigenous people, are sovereign. We have empowerment, we have capacity, and all of those are really intertwined and equitable. And so Ngaikuk Asikluk was one of the first Inupiaq or Yupiaq scholars to earn his PhD. So the Indigenous Studies Master's and PhD programs here at the University of Alaska System are based on his Yupiaq worldview and is foundational for that. And so his Yupiaq worldview shows that the natural realm, the spiritual realm, and human realm interact with each other. And they uh, are built on the individual, the family, community, and also the mindfulness. All of those interact with each other for his Yupiaq worldview. And if you think about native knowledge systems, and you think about the iceberg analogy, and for those who don't know, the iceberg um, on the ocean, you could only see 10% of that. And that's the surface culture, where you could see storytelling, drumming, subsistence, cooking, and regalia. And below that surface is 90% of that, of our knowledge systems, which includes clothing, language, seasonal changes, astronomy, weather forecasting, and genealogy, etc. So these are the things that try to bring to our descendants in the educational system, so that we work together with the elders who have that deep-rooted knowledge that's below the surface and bring that to our students and our children and our descendants as well. So there's a picture of Ngaikuk to the right, as well as Ray Barnhart, who was also who founded and developed the Indigenous Studies PhD program, which was founded in 2009 here at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. So it's fairly recent. Through this, we look at the Alaska Native Knowledge Network. With the Alaska Native Knowledge Network, it's with 5 different regions: the Yupik region, the Athabascan region, the Inupiaq region, Southeast region, and Yupik region. And so the website is amking.uaf.edu, which we are updating right now. We get about 1.5 to 2 million hits each month about bringing our native ways of knowing, native ways of teaching, and native ways of learning in through our website and as well as our resources that are which include our books as well. So a lot of our resources are based on our indigenous values. And this is the Bristol Bay Yupik values. This is Uyurak Chiyurak, which is written only in Nuktun or Chuktun. And it takes months to really identify what those mean. We're the first people that came up with the Alaska Standards for Culturally Responsive Schools, as well as the guidelines for culturally responsive Alaska schools. Uh, by the way, the cultural standards that are here, which were adopted in 1998, and one of the first ones that were adopted by Native educators worldwide, there became Sami standards, Native Hawaiian standards, um, Aboriginal standards, Canadian standards, so um, we're instrumental in making culturally, making sure that our cultural rigor meets and meets and exceeds our academic rigor. And so there's other guidelines as well, guidelines with respect to cultural knowledge. We had our village science. We had resources that were developed by Alaskan Native PhDs, including Dolly Garza, Dr. Dolly Garza, who wrote Tlingit Moon and Tides. She's Tlingit and Haida. So these are resources that are written at by PhDs for our people, um, and um, uh, make sure that it it addresses the things that are below the surface in the iceberg analogy. Again, there's the culturally responsive curriculum, which is co-written by Sydney Stevens and Jonas Ramick and the Nipek Elder. And then we have cultural camps that we basically have the elders teach the educators how to teach through the cultural. And so again, with the indigenous knowledge systems and Western knowledge systems, we see the two-eyed seeing with the where we see the native knowledge systems and Western knowledge systems and see where those common grounds are. And originally, Dr. Ray Barnhart looked at the Alaska Rural Systemic Initiatives, looking at two different knowledge streams, the native knowledge streams and Western knowledge streams, and bringing them together so that they're equal. And so, with these different initiatives with the Alaska Native Knowledge Network, Academy of Elders on the Western side as the teachers' standards, performance assessments, bringing them all together. And then we took it a step further when we developed the Alaska, the Indigenous Studies PhD program, where we have the six strands of our Indigenous PhD program with Indigenous sustainability, Indigenous studies and research, Indigenous leadership, Indigenous languages, Indigenous knowledge systems, and Indigenous education and pedagogy. So those are adding to our Indigenous studies stream. And so this is our well-being model, where we look at the six streams and we see not only the our well-being, ways of being, and how it's supported by community-centered, community support, respectful research, but also Indigenous worldviews, Indigenous methods, and methodology. And this is our well-being model. When we got accredited through the Alaska Native Nations Higher Education Consortium, and we got we are the first Alaska program, institution, organization program to earn that secondary accreditation to meet the WinHEC accreditation to meet the cultural rigor, which is higher than the academic rigor. And so through through the Center for Cross-Cultural Studies, we offer the Indigenous Studies Masters and the PhD program. Some of our alumni, the first people, one of the first recipients is Teresa John, who was also not only the first person to earn a PhD through the Indigenous Studies PhD program, but also was one of the faculty members until she retired 2 years ago. We also have Alberta Jones, who was an alumni of the PhD program, who taught in Western Washington University in Bellingham, Washington. She maintains the list of Alaska Natives who've earned a PhD or an EDD, and there's about 156 of us throughout history. And so she maintained that list. And then we have Heather Sayek, who's Gordon, who is really deeply involved with other institutions, as well as serving on several of our graduate committees. Also, Charlene Akpak, APAC, who is running one of the nonprofit statewide organizations called the Native Movement, which is an advocacy program for Native run organizations statewide. We also have other people that were part of our administration, and also other alumni. Amy Topkok is earned her master's degree, and now is a PhD student, working on researching sewing or indigenous sewing. There's also Charlene Stern is currently the University of Alaska interim provost. So a lot of people in our program are deeply involved in academics as well as Pearl Brower, who was the president of Elisab College, which is the only tribal college in Alaska. She now works for her native corporation. And then there's Yvette Collins, who did her postdoc in France, looking at the genetics of horses and the horses that are from the continental U.S., as well as Davida Marston in Vancouver. We are an internationally known PhD program. So Davida is in Canada, and she did her dissertation about 1,000 drums and how it relates to things, to worldwide community. And at the very center is Dr. Olga Skinner, who is a faculty at the University of Alaska Fairbanks in the School of Education, but you can see that it takes a village or community that really supports our students as well. We are the largest PhD program. We currently have about 75 PhD programs throughout the University of Alaska system in Indigenous. Our in Indigenous Studies, it is the largest PhD program throughout the University of Alaska system. And I just want to say Kuinak, Teku Anabasi. This is the QR code for our website. Hopefully I did less than 20 minutes.
Really impressive. Thank you so much, and very good with your timing. I have a few questions, but I will connect to you with a panel, especially how do you support supervisors or teaching staff of your program? I'm really curious, how do you incorporate that? But because we have a panel discussion at 2, I don't want to take any minute from Karen and Bree.